Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube segment, I'm going to be talking about what I consider the lost art of communication. And when I'm talking about this, I'm not talking about internet chat. What I'm referring to is just simple telephone communication and in-person communication. Now, it seems like since the advent of the internet, the in-person communication and also telephone contacts communication has diminished and deteriorated greatly. It seems like a lot of the people that I know, or a number of them, okay, they want to do either the Skype. I understand that's face to face. That's okay because you're getting a little personal touch. But it seems like a lot of people want to really either text on the phone or they want to talk on the internet, do some kind of chatting. And the thing about this is what people understand is that in certain ways, talking on the phone is actually easier than chatting or texting. There's less type, but you don't have to type to talk on the phone. Just your voice coming out of your mouth, that doesn't really require as much effort. But I think people seem to think that the internet is constantly facilitating communication, and it doesn't always do that. Now, if you don't have a phone, I understand that, and you just have your computer, your laptop, your PC, and that's all you want to do. That's your only means of communication available. That's understandable. But I don't understand, is it me, or do people just have more of an aversion to like in-person communication or telephone conversation? Yeah, like you'll get a number, someone will give you their number, and they'll say, well, I'm about texting, I'm not really into the talking on the phone. What is I don't understand, is the internet almost making a telephone and an in-person conversation obsolete? Is it going to get to a point where everything's going to be done in the virtual world, where you're not even going to have that personal connection? The thing about when you're on the internet and when you're writing something, a lot of times something you type say in a chat box on Facebook, it can be misconstrued. It might be considered ambiguous. And what happens is the person sometimes misunderstands what you say and might take it as something derogatory when didn't even mean anything like that. When you talk on the phone, you have that more personal connection, in my opinion. You have the inflection of the voice. You could hear something, but based on how it's said, you have a better idea of really the actual meaning of what was said more, and whether it was meant, was it sardonic, was it belligerent, was it actually somebody being just comical and flippant. And that's really what I think when you look at the internet, and in contrast to in-person communication. The internet is fine. I understand many people are infatuated with the internet, and I think what happens is because we're in this internet age, we just feel maybe compelled to do just about everything that we can possibly do on the internet. The internet has also, this internet era has set off really a strong amount of other innovations and inventions. Now, many of you may have heard about the Wi-Fi doorbell, when you could be at any location virtually, and then your doorbell rings and it sends a signal to your phone or whatever, and you could see the person at your door and kind of screen them, and they could be under the impression that you're even in the house actually answering them, if I'm not mistaken. So the internet has more advantages than disadvantages. That is absolutely true. But I think what's happened is we've lost touch of that old communication called in-person communication and telephone conversation. And I understand there's some people that disperse maybe their communications evenly as far as the internet and on the phone. And I'm not saying everybody is dominated by the internet so much that they're not willing to talk on the phone. That is absolutely not true. But I think on average, people have been more inclined to go on the internet as their form of communication, as opposed to being on the phone. And people, just for whatever reason, they seem to have this reluctance to talk on the phone more so than, say, maybe 20 years ago. I think that is one thing that's definitely true. And I think it's because we've gotten, collectively as a society, we've gotten so acclimated and accustomed to being on the internet, we just figure we're going to do a lot of our talking on there now, as opposed to being on the phone or having an in-person conversation. And I guess my message I'm conveying, in this video, is that don't lose sight of talking on the phone. Just because the internet is innovative and it's something new, and it's something that, not new, but it was something that was designed later on after the advent or invention of the telephone, doesn't mean that the telephone conversation should be rendered obsolete. And there are a lot of advantages of talking on the phone in in-person conversation as opposed to being on the internet. So it's just something to keep in mind. It's like people talk about ebooks. I mean, ebooks can be good, but there's nothing wrong with going to bed at night, right before you go to sleep, put your little nightlight on, and get a magazine or a book. Because you know what? It's nostalgic. And sometimes it's easier in some cases. For example, you could look up something. Well, let's say I wanted to research something, right? Most people are compelled to go to Google, which is fine if you're already on the computer. But let's say your computer's not on and you have a phone book handy. Hell, it might be a lot faster to go into the phone book and look something up than to turn your computer on and wait to get onto the internet and then go onto Google and then type what you have to type in there and wait for the answer. So anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube segment for the lost art of, I guess you could say, telephone communication, telephone and in-person communication. Until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying, stay well.